We're Hasani and Danielle Pettiford, and we're a real couple with real problems who almost called it quits.
I was very frustrated. I became very disconnected, very jaded and cold.
We have 4 children, going on 20 years of marriage, and we practice what we preach.
Our mission, to change the way couples relate to one another and teach them the skills needed to improve the quality of their relationships. This is the Couples Academy Show.
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. My name is Hasani, and you're tuning in on a Monday morning. Hope you had a great weekend. We're excited to talk to you. Very important topic today. Should you have opposite sex friends, especially if you're married? Survey says that's what we're talking about today. Because listen, truth be told, it can be dangerous. It can be tricky. I know some of you have them and things have gone extremely well. And some of you, it's been compromising to the integrity of your relationship. And we're talking about that today. So listen, before we get started, make sure you push that notification button, share button, subscribe, do what you need to do so that you can be reminded of upcoming shows and let other people know that we're live. Because this is a place where people hang out all over the world to discuss sensitive issues about their relationships. So let's go in. Listen, before we get started, we want to talk about the Last Chance Weekend coming up, second weekend in July. We're excited about that. Couples are signing up. We're going to have a phenomenal, transformative experience. And right now, some of you are in crisis and you need help. Reach out to us. I want to share this testimonial, powerful testimonial of a woman who came from a place of just brokenness and left completely different as a result of this experience. So watch this and we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Jessica from Johnstown, New York. I came to this marriage retreat. It's not a retreat, it's an intensive, and they mean it. So my husband had an affair, and this is 11 months. We've tried to work on things ourselves. And it was very difficult. We did make some progress, but it just wasn't thorough. So coming here, I wasn't really sure what to expect. It was a pretty large investment, but I decided I really needed something. So we came here, and right away I started to learn a lot of things that I didn't expect to learn, a lot of things about myself, which had everything to do with my relationship. I didn't really realize there was so many inconsistencies, the idiosyncrasies that you hear about all the time in relationships. But they were actually part of our core, our inner person. And I didn't know that. We started to figure out what makes me tick, what makes him tick, why these things are clashing in our relationship. And it brought me to a very strong understanding of why there has been problems and then how to fix them. Because it's very hard to get through infidelity if you don't see an end result. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. So then we also went through forgiveness and just a list of things that I don't think I could have ever done on my own. There's no way. Everybody's been so nice. Actually, the group setting was helpful because I could see other couples and you could see their tension, but then when they weren't talking about that subject and they were off to the side, they were acting like normal couples. So it made me feel normal that I'm not really bipolar just because I love my spouse and then all of a sudden I turn into a different person when I'm in an argument. But really, that's kind of how everybody does it. They're a different person when they're stressed than when they're just casual. So this helps you analyze your personality and recognize the shifts and how to bring out the best in each other, and then ask all the questions you need to in order to proceed. And I didn't know the process, but trusting the process, now everybody in this whole intensive has hugged and cried together, and I feel like a majority of the other couples will actually make some great progress, and I'm very thankful for this because I know for me personally, I'm definitely going home, and I'm going to be going home to a different relationship, a second chance, new beginning, clean slate, and I would not have been able to do it without this ambiance, the people, and even though it's it's their job, they really have put their heart into it. And I genuinely feel like they care personally about my relationship. And that's something that you don't see often. And the place has also been fantastic. You get to sit next to a pool, kick your feet up a little bit, but then the next morning you wake up and you just think, meditate, mill about everything, and get a lot of perspectives and philosophies and thoughts and things you never thought about before. Super helpful to be able to move forward. So I'm definitely going to be going home and recommending this to my friends.
That's what it's all about, the Last Chance Weekend, the place where you come and reflect and reevaluate and reconsider what has gone wrong in the relationship and how to turn it around and make it right. And so, listen, it's still time. I'm reading a comment from Graham. Hi, Hasani. I'm from Hungary. I am in real trouble. Can I call you? Well, of course. And all you need to do is reach out on our website. You can set up a discovery call, or you can contact us through WhatsApp. I know you're in another country. When you're in another country, folks, WhatsApp is the best way. And it's 678-200-8996. But let's get into the conversation. Should you have opposite sex friends? This is a question that oftentimes both married and non-married couples struggle with, because we have different philosophies, different experiences, different upbringings, different situations and circumstances, which has created a sensitivity in this particular space. And oftentimes couples aren't necessarily on the same page. Maybe they haven't truly talked it out, flushed it out, or maybe there were certain assumptions that were made once we said I do, and there was no need to talk about it because it's just obvious. And then we find ourselves in situations that we didn't anticipate, right? And so the question is, should we have opposite sex friends? Now, it's interesting. I begin to reflect. I remember when Mike Pence was running for vice president in 2017. And I remember him making a statement that, he would not spend any time with any member of the opposite sex other than his wife. And that was a very is this guy a lame? Or maybe he's just conservative and, high family values and things of that nature. Well, anyway, it became a good discussion amongst many people. And what he was referring to when he made that statement is what is called the Billy Graham rule. Okay. The Billy Graham rule. Now, Billy Graham, for many of you who may know, was a national evangelist. Okay. Government sponsored national evangelist that did all types of retreat is the wrong word. He would do camp meetings all over the country and all over the world, and would, draw thousands, tens of thousands, and he would preach the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so, interestingly enough, there was never a single scandal around his life concerning another woman. And it's interesting because in today's society, when it comes to ministers and ministry, all you hear about is scandal with members of the opposite sex. Well, he had a rule, and the Billy Graham rule says never spend time alone with the opposite sex. Never, ever, ever, ever do that. And so as a result of that, he avoided temptations. He avoided scandal. He did not want to have a bad reputation as it relates, because a bad reputation could affect and impact his ministry. I think a lot of ministers today need to operate according to that rule. But in essence, that was the rule. And so many people said, man, that rule is just so outdated and it's so ridiculous and it's too hard. And it doesn't, it does not consider the times that we're living in today, because men and women are in close proximity. They work together. They go to the gym together. They do ministry together, all types of things. And so I think as a principle, it's good. Maybe to make it a more updated version, you can put some boundaries around it, because we find ourselves, when we step out of our home, we're always going to be dealing with members of the opposite sex. So the question should be, what is appropriate? What is not? What do we agree on as a couple? Now, the reality is every couple is different. So there is no absolute rule to this. One thing I would first say is, if it works for you and doesn't work for your spouse, it doesn't work for the marriage. If it doesn't work for you and it works for your spouse, then it doesn't work for the marriage. So in essence, both of you should have an agreed upon approach, is what we call the policy of joint agreement. And the policy of joint agreement says that we both enthusiastically agree with this position. And if it's not an enthusiastic agreement, then we need to break out. Come on, folks. You know this. If you've done a last chance weekend, if you've done a private, if you've done a moving forward program, if you've done some sessions, we need to pull out that marriage negotiation worksheet, right? And begin to negotiate through what we will do as a couple. Listen, guys, you're watching the Couples Academy show. We're going to go deeper and talk about this. I want to know, do you think it's okay? Do you not? Post it in the comments so that we can acknowledge you. Be right back in just a second.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, well, to Vashawn and Sandy and Jackie and Amanda, we got Lisa, Shalise, Gonzalez, Daryl, Hunt, Sherry, Andrew, St. Cuthbert Church, West Hempstead, Shintoni, to all the people who are on Instagram, to all the people who are watching on the replay. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for entrusting us to provide information to you regarding your life and your relationship that can make a difference. We're talking about, should you have opposite sex friends? I want to know what you think, guys. Post it in the comments. Yes, you should. No, you shouldn't. Give your reason why. Have you had challenges in this particular space? We want to talk about it, but let's get into some things that you should consider when it comes to opposite sex friends, if you choose to have them, right? We can't tell you that you should or shouldn't. It depends upon you as a couple and you both being in agreement. But number one, if you're going to have opposite sex friends, keep this in mind. Make your relationship with your spouse your priority. We say this all the time. Your spousal relationship is the most important relationship that you have on the planet. That is the one that you've established a covenant with between you, your partner, and God. And so there should be a protection around this relationship. There should be a culture to the marriage, rules or parameters or relational code of ethics. Now, here's the reality. Your spouse can't be your end all to be all. They just can't. They cannot meet all of your needs. They just can't. And God did not design them to be your everything. And so it is critically important Yes, to have relationships outside of your primary marital relationship, but your marital relationship is your primary. It is your focus. It is the most important. And you should be intentional and self aware and conscious to make sure that you're maintaining a healthy relationship with your spouse. And for those particular areas, in terms of needs that you have that your spouse cannot meet, yes, you want to be able to have those needs met from other people, but they should not. Listen, hear what I'm saying. We all have other needs our spouse can't meet. All right. So let me give you an example. One of the challenges or one of the realities of men and women is that, generally speaking, and when you're talking about men and women, you have to be general because there's always going to be situations where your experience is counter to the generalized approach. But generally speaking, women connect, men bond. Bonding doesn't require a whole lot of talking. If I get together with one of my male friends and we're watching a game, we're there, yeah. We're bonding. We're engaged in some type of activity that doesn't require a lot of communicating. When women get together, they connect. They're talking, they're sharing, they're pouring out, they're exchanging, they're in tune with what each other is saying. Not that men don't talk, well, of course we talk, but it's a different thing. And so oftentimes in relationships, women show up to the relationship wanting to connect, men show up wanting to bond, and sometimes there is a disconnect, and sometimes we have to step outside of our normal thing in order to meet in the middle to have this relationship as our primary relationship. But there may still be a need for women to connect, men to bond. And so it goes to the second point: cultivate and maintain your same sex friendships, because those same sex friendships can be there to give you what you need, or what will help bring about fulfillment in your particular life, that will help you do things. Like, for instance, if I'm into sports and my spouse isn't into sports, hey, you want to go to the game? You want to talk about the game? Man, we could talk about the stats and the players and all of that. I may not be able to do that with my wife, but I have a same-sex friend that I can do that with. And so by having that need met, I don't feel as if I have a deficit in my marriage. I have the best of both worlds. I have not only my marriage, but I have a community that I'm connected with that in this community doesn't put a strain on my relationship. It actually supplements the relationship that I have with my spouse. You see the difference? And so the challenge is when we're seeking to have needs met or voids filled, right? Or deficits accommodated by opposite sex friends. That's when we get into trouble, because now comparisons come into play. And now we're assessing, I wish my wife could do what she does. I wish my husband was more like he is. And these comparisons, what they do is they increase your frustration, right? They enhance possibly your desire for the other to connect, because you have a connection that you just don't have with your spouse. Man, you're able to do things that you just don't do with your spouse. And that becomes the slippery slope. And you're like, well, we're just friends. What's the big deal? We're just friends. But you don't realize that you're planting a seed. And all it takes is time, right? A seed planted and constantly watered and nourished over time produces a harvest. And then the reality is, when you plant a seed, you don't know what's going on underneath the ground. You have no idea. All of a sudden, you see something sprout out of the ground. You're like, oh, wow, we have a harvest. Likewise, when you're planting seeds and suggestions and just casually engaging over the period of time, you don't know what that's doing inside of the heart and mind of that individual. And before you know it, you produce a harvest that you did not anticipate. And now you're stuck with this feeling that you didn't think you had, and this connection and this vibe, and all of these things begin to occur because not that you were intentionally doing something wrong, but you didn't put proper boundaries in place. And so we're saying, if you're going to have an opposite sex friendship, it has to come with a clear understanding. It has to come with boundaries. It has to come with rules of engagement that you've come together with your spouse to figure out in order to make sure that it doesn't do anything that is compromising to your relationship. I hope this is making sense. So once again, We're not saying that you shouldn't have friends. If you do have opposite sex friends, what boundaries, parameters, what expectations, what rules have you put in place to ensure that it doesn't compromise your marriage? You're watching the Couples Academy show. Stay right there. We'll be right back.
Welcome to the Couples Academy app. The Couples Academy app is your go-to hub for how to do marriage right. Get started with our app today by perusing our amazing features that conveniently allow you to connect. This app is packed with powerful content and resources to help you grow and stay connected. With this app, you can watch our messages, find marriage resources, watch, listen, and read the real-life stories of restored couples, sign up for events, read articles and blog posts, stay up to date with push notifications, share your favorite messages via Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or email, and download messages for offline listening. For more information about the Couples Academy app, go to couplesacademy.org.
All right, guys, we're back. We're talking about friends. Is it okay? Is it not? What say you? We have a couple comments we want to go to. Shalise says, friendship is fine if it is a friend of the marriage. Secret friends are never acceptable. Friendships without boundaries are dangerous. And that is a fact, Jack. Let's go to the next. No, I guess the answer is no, you shouldn't have opposite sex friends. Just because I've learned from experience, the temptations that can come from it is too much. I'm in a relationship now and I have zero desire to entertain any other man, friend, or not. Well, there it is. So the question is, and this is rhetorical, what does your spouse say? What does your spouse think? Are they on the same page? If you're on the same page in any direction, you're in a great place. If you're not, that's when conversations have to be had. Felicia says, good morning. What happens when the friend that is the opposite sex is your spouse's child's mother? So the mother of that child, they are friends. Well, here's the reality. It's important that that if they have a child together, as long as that child is under the age of 18, they have to come together, have conversations, interact over the child. But there should be boundaries placed upon that relationship. Now, when you say, is it okay to be friends? Well, what does that even mean? Right? So we'll get there in a second. But anytime it's a situation like this where I'm still connected to a member of the opposite sex because we have a child together, you have to be extremely careful. And I'm not trying to strike fear in you regarding this particular woman, but we've seen where infidelity has crept in because there's a shared common history that they have. They have a child together. They share thoughts and memories. They're having conversations that go beyond just the child. You know, they're engaging in phone calls and text messages and visitations. And how about we do this with the child? And it's almost like the spouse is blocked out of that world. They share something that the spouse doesn't even have access to. We've seen that. And depending upon the age of the child determines how much you interact with that the mother of the child, who is the friend in this particular situation. And so here's the reality. If any person has a spouse who has an opposite sex friend and you are uncomfortable with that friend, it's worthy of a conversation to determine what we as a couple are going to do. If we keep this friend, if I allow you to keep this friend, then these are the rules. or we're deciding that we're going to disconnect from that because it's putting too much of a strain on the relationship. So the next question is, what boundaries can be put in place when the friend of the opposite sex is just, okay, it's basically the same question. What are the boundaries? Well, those boundaries have to be determined by you. That's why we said you got to use the marriage negotiation worksheet, because you both have to be, in essence, in agreement. But let me just give you some basic boundaries when it comes to, well, first of all, that child, though you're not the biological mother, you are playing a role as a mother or a mother figure in that child's life. Does the child live with you? Does the child live with the other person? Like, there's circumstances if you're coming up with strict boundaries, but when it comes to communication, you should have access to that communication. You should know about that communication. There should not be any communication that you're not privy to, because of their shared past history. Is he making visitations and going over her house to see the child without you? That's a problem. When it comes to spending time with that child, right? You need to know about that. So you need to be in the loop. I mean, it's a different dynamic if it's a baby mother as a result of an affair versus a previous relationship. Nonetheless, because there's a different sensitivity to it, there's a different trust factor to it. Nonetheless, there've got to be rules. So we've done several videos on this. We have one called the 19 Signs of a Close Call Friendship. And you've done this, and if you go back to those rules and apply it to this particular situation, you'll know exactly what you should do. And that kind of takes us to the next point. Like, if you have an opposite sex friend, real talk, that your spouse is not necessarily aware of, that's a problem, because you shouldn't have a secret friend. But even if they know about your friend and they kind of interact with them from a distance, here's a great tip. Build a shared social network with your spouse. So for instance, I've got a female friend. My female friend has a husband. Well, guess what? Why don't you come over to dinner to our house? Let's get to know each other, because I don't want to have a relationship with you that your husband isn't aware of, that my wife isn't aware of, or a part of. Right? Because I should not have a personal relationship with another, member of the opposite sex that they don't have any role or participation in. Because now it becomes problematic. Because when I'm going through challenges with my wife, guess where I'm going? I'm going to my friend. When she has issues with her husband, guess where she's coming? She's coming to who? Where? Her friend. And if you look at the evolution of infidelity, overwhelmingly, most relationships, most illicit relationships and affairs happen with who? A friend. And a friend could be a coworker. A friend could be someone we serve in ministry with. A friend could be a next door neighbor. A friend could be, it doesn't matter. We think friends are, we grew up together and we've known each other for 20 years and that's a friend. No. Anybody, if you're friendly with, you see, there should not be a separate, independent relationship that your spouse isn't aware of and on some level involved with. Okay? And so it takes us to the next point. You got to be careful about your interactions. You got to be careful about your dialogue. And we talk about this all the time. If you're going to have an opposite sex friend, what is the nature of that relationship? What are you talking about? Are you talking about intimate things? Are you talking about personal things? Are you talking about relational things? These things allow you to open up in ways that you really should be doing this with your spouse, right? This is why we say intimacy. Into me see. I'm allowing them to see into my life, into my world, by what I have going on, what I'm dealing with, what my feelings are, what my emotions are, what I'm struggling with, what my frustrations are, what I find passionate and what I find fulfilling. I'm sharing all of this with my opposite sex friend, and it can create a connection, build a curiosity, establish a commonality where you begin to share those things together. And now you have something very different than what you initially had. Before it was platonic. Now it's become somewhat problematic. These are the challenges that happen when you get involved with members of the opposite sex. Gonzalez says there shouldn't be a friendship with the opposite sex. Boundaries that are not established in the beginning will create conflict. Conflict can create an emotional affair if there has been any past involvement. Listen, if you are friends with someone that you have had a relationship with in the past, even a curiosity in the past that was never fulfilled, danger zone, Not up in here. Not up in here. Guys, I hope you got something out of this. I think we need to continue this conversation because it's a hot one. But until then, enjoy your day. Now, tonight we've got Foundry. For those that are waiting for that show, the Foundry show with Jeff and I, we're going to be talking about men's issues. So make sure you tune into that. We're excited about that. And then tomorrow, tune in for another episode of the Couples Academy Show. Love you guys. See you soon.